Hello, everyone.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in a meeting yesterday for 10 minutes and I was like, hello, what's going on, mister? And I saw
Yeah.
your email afterwards.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm still feeling kind of under the weather, but I don't want you guys to miss too many lectures. So, yeah, sorry about the late notice.
No worries, sir.
So today we're gonna do the assignment solutions. So, and obviously we'll do like a Q&A if you have any questions about interfaces or assignment
Okay.
3.
Is sir gonna release a YouTube video?
Yeah, so there should be a live stream up and running.
Is it possible if sir can also share your screen on here because I'm currently going through load shedding and I
Yeah,
won't be able to go through my computer.
yeah, sure. I'll share it on here as well. Yeah, and then so today will be the assignment solutions, and then Monday will be generics, Java generics, and maybe we'll do a bit of debugging and
Yes,
kind
sir.
of
Now,
more general stuff.
what will the last assignment be based on? Well, I'm sure it will be based on everything. Will it be
Yeah.
similar to this? Or?
So the last assignment is actually just using, well, it'll incorporate everything, but it'll be abstract classes, interfaces, and the basic object-oriented programming, and you'll be asked to do some UML diagrams as well.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. And that's it. Then we'll be done. Once we've done the generics and so on, we should be done with the coursework, and then we could do kind of a special topic, and then the week after, next week, we'll do 2 review sessions before the test.
Okay.
Yeah, so next week, Thursday, might even
And
be a review session, and Friday will be a review session.
yes, sir. Is that the UML diagram that block thing that sir showed us?
Yes, yeah, so actually, I'll show you there are a couple of tools you can use for creating UML diagrams, but I found this one, if you don't feel like, clicking and dragging different things, then you can also use something called plant UML, which lets you more write out your class diagrams.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're welcome to use any kind of tool you want. Um, that's the point of this class. So let me share my screen with you. We can wait another 5 minutes and then get started with everything. So, oh, I wanted to pull up the assignment. So someone had a question about assignment 3. Assignment 3, question 3. Is that for task 1 or task 2? Task 2 probably, I'm guessing. Question 3 in the current assignment. Okay. Make sure that the charging station class has the following properties: a private array of vehicle objects that represents the docked vehicles. Is that the question you're referring to? Task 2? Yeah. Which question? Question 3 in task 2. So this one, I'm assuming. Let me make the screen a little bit bigger. Yes, okay. So you should know how to make a private attribute of a class. So in the level of a class, if we wanted to have an attribute, we would say something like private, right? Some attribute, we can have a string like name, and then this only belongs to the class. Or then you're asking about something called a array of vehicle objects. Now, if you know from your object-oriented programming, just give me 1 second. If you know from your object-oriented programming, then these classes that you write can also be treated as a type, like a data type. So you can go a type called Scratch, right? Scratch is an other object, so we can have it maybe protected. A protected, and so we'll have another class that is type Scratch, and that's the other object. So if you put these together, you could have the tasks ask for a private array with the type vehicle. Okay, so you would put this somewhere, and when you have arrays in Java, they look something like that, where it's the type and then the square brackets. Does that make sense?
So,
Okay. All right. It's about 4 past. Keep sending me notifications. Hold on a second here. Send notifications. No, thank you.
so
Yes. You have a question?
yes, I also have a question about question 5 in task 2 of the assignment.
Of assignment 3.
Yes. Assignment
Okay.
3.
Question 5. Create a subclass of vehicle.
Yes.
Okay.
The print info method
Yes.
says we should print out the name and weight of the test vehicle.
Oh.
In the test code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in the test code, it prints out the charge, not
Yes.
the weight. So
It should be
the implement.
It should be the charge. I'll make sure to add that as a correction. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, so no problem.
So that weight should be replaced with charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're not going to do assignment 3, but if you have any questions about assignment 3, you're welcome to ask. Instead, today we're going to implement some solutions for assignments 1 and 2. I think we'll start with assignment 2. Assignment 1 is a little bit more straightforward. I've uploaded the solutions over here. If you go under course resources, you go down to the assignment solutions. There will be assignment 1 and 2, and I've hidden I've hidden the files under assignment 3. So under logging, you'll see there's the 3 different files, and under traffic, you'll see there is 3 different files. However, it's important to know that these are my approaches to the assignment. In programming, there are many correct ways to go about something. They're my solutions. If your solution, if you did it slightly differently but it still worked, then that's fine. You are, however, if we ask for specific things like a private array called this, then you should have a private array called so-and-so, or a method called this with this number of parameters, then you should have that. However, if it comes down to like calculating the distance between two objects, and you found some code that helped you understand it a bit better, or you did it a slightly different way, but it still gives you the correct answer, then that's fine as well. All right, so today, you'll have to excuse if my voice comes and goes a little bit. I'm a little under the weather, Today we'll actually start with assignment 2, as it's the more recent one and it's the one that deals with object-oriented programming. So we're going to go through step by step and see if we can implement it. So I'm just going to move this over here, and we're going to scroll down and try to implement it as we go along. Can everyone see clearly enough the different things? Can
Yes,
you
sir.
see the text and everything? Okay. So I'll just open up here, look at the assignment solutions. So for traffic control number 1, this is our first object-oriented programming assignment. It says create a class called basic vehicle that has the following private attributes. Okay, so for that we need to create a new file, because every class has to be in a file with the name of the class, so basic vehicle and the .java extension, right? So if we open the basic vehicle, let me close this. If we open the basic vehicle, you see that VS Code has already generated a bunch of code for me. We don't need to worry about packages. We might talk about that next week, but we do want to put in our private attributes, and attributes are variables that belong to the class. So that's fine. Are variables that belong to the class. So we'll say private, and we have latitude, longitude, and altitude that are of type double. So this will be double, and we have latitude, right? And then we can actually just go copy, make our lives a bit easier, or I think it's Control-Shift-D. No, that's run in debug, never mind that. We can just go here, Control-C, Control-V, Control-V, and then this is longitude. Did I spell that right? Longitude and altitude. Okay, so we have those three done. Those are marks. A private attribute called registration of type string. Private type string. Yes?
I just want to say that I like that the fact that you guys mark mainly on our code, not necessarily the output.
Yes. So really, we don't want to train you to be monkeys that can just get the correct output. We want to see, are you thinking about the code? And how are you thinking about the code? So that's why we mark the code and not just the output.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully when you go...
I don't think I got in, assignment 2 entirely right, but I put all my effort in the code to show that I did do something, like I wasn't, yeah.
That's good.
Similar to math, like math, they focus on your methodology more than your correct answer.
Exactly, yeah, and because when you go into industry, ultimately you're going to have to read other people's code and write your own code, and just getting the right output is not enough, right? We should be able to communicate, and the program should be robust enough.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's instruction 1 done. So task 1, instruction 1 complete. We have our private variables, private attributes. And what the private keyword means in terms of inheritance is that we cannot access it anywhere outside of the class. Even if another class extends this one, it's not allowed to access those variables. Okay. Later on, we'll write the getter and setter methods for each of the attributes. So let's actually just order this code a little bit. We'll just say this is attributes. And then here it says create a default constructor for the class that sets registration to unknown and altitude, latitude, and longitude to 0. So we'll label this the default constructor. And we'll say here, a default constructor is always a public method. Constructors are public, and we'll say basic vehicle, right? And if it's a default constructor, we take no parameters. So it's no parameters. This is like us saying new basic vehicle is, right, new basic vehicle, and not giving it any parameters. So that's what the default constructor does. And in here we want to say this, meaning the current object instance that we are creating in the constructor. Remember, this refers to the object, the instance of the object. This, and then we say registration is equal to, what do they want? Unknown. Okay. This dot latitude or altitude is equal to 0.0. And then we can just, again, Control C, Control V, and we'll say latitude and longitude, right? So basic constructor done, instructions 1 and 2 done. The reason why we have default constructors is in some cases, say with an assignment that you might be working on, if you have a private array of integers, right, called something like my numbers, while the Java compiler can infer a default constructor for you, it won't know what size you want this array. So it'll just, this, until you create it, actually, in your object, will be null, even if Java creates a default constructor for you. So that's why it is good practice to always create a default constructor, so that you can set all of your variables or your attributes and kind of do the initial setup of the program. Then it says, overload the default constructor to take a parameter for each attribute and set it. Now, to remind you, refresh your memory a bit, when we overload a method, what are we doing? We're changing the type and or number of parameters, right? So this is an overloaded constructor, and we say it is a public basic vehicle, and you'll notice that constructors do not have a return type. So normally we'll add a return type, and if we return nothing, it would be void. But in this case, the constructor is returning a basic vehicle, right? Because it's creating an instance of the object. So we've created this constructor, and now we need to take a parameter for each attribute and set it. That means we need a string for the registration. For the registration, we need doubles for the altitude, double, sorry, it's not doubles, it's double for the altitude, latitude, and a double for the longitude. Okay. If we save this, we'll see here, we can actually just do this, clean it up a little bit, so it's a little bit more readable. I'll actually hide this guy for now. Just put this down here. So we can actually, because Java is not exactly white space dependent, we can have our kind of method parameters broken up like this. We might even indent them a little bit just for clarity. And then down here, we now need to differentiate, because the parameter name is the same as our attribute name. We need to use the this keyword, so this.registration is equal to registration, to resolve the ambiguity, right? So we can use this, or we can do it a different way and say like registration string, which is a bit annoying. That's something called stuttering in programming. So if you say string, registration string, you're kind of like stuttering and repeating yourself. So some languages, like the Go programming language, they explicitly will tell you when you compile that this variable naming is stuttering. However, in Java, we don't really have that restriction. But because everything is typed, it doesn't make sense for us to add string to it. It does make sense for us to add string to it, because we already know the type. We can determine the type at compile time. Okay, so we use this. We say this dot altitude is equal to altitude in the parameter. This dot latitude is equal to latitude in the parameter list, and then this dot longitude is equal to longitude. Right? So you can stop me at any time if you have questions, but you can see how almost a little bit straightforward it is. We're not asking to do very complicated things. It's a bit repetitive, but it's testing the fundamentals of object-oriented programming with Java. So now the fun part, write getter and setter methods for each of the attributes. If you have something like IntelliJ, I think with IntelliJ you can go here and you can say something like implement get set or something like that. You can actually implement or ask it to generate the getter and setter methods. For now though, we will say getter and setter methods. We'll just add a little bit of commentary, and then we'll say public, and now we will have to add a return type. So for the registration, it'll have to be a string. So public string get registration. It takes no parameters because it's just an accessing method, and then we return a string. We can say return new string this dot registration. Okay, why would we do something like this? Well, in the case of Java, there's something called passing by reference and passing by value. It's the same as when you do the arrays, where it will create a memory address, and we want to prevent it from just sending the memory address to whatever's calling, so we can just create a new string. You won't lose marks if you didn't do it like this. I'm just letting you know now, because it's kind of an interesting behavior of Java. So here it actually creates a new string with a different memory address. So if you have this string, you can then, or the address of the string, you can manipulate it, whatever. We don't really care about that. So then we say public void, because we're not returning anything, set string, set registration like this, and we will take a string and we'll say new registration, and we can say over here this dot registration is equal to new registration, right? However, in the same way that we kind of want to protect over here, we can also protect over here.
So please explain what does this do in the same way.
Say again. Sorry, you had a question?
Like I'm just placing get and set blindly, like just because I learned it, but I don't really know what it's doing.
Okay. So if we have, let's actually create a little test class so far. We'll do this. Let's create a new file, say test assignment Java. Okay. Close this. We'll get rid of this for now. This packaging thing is part of Java's packaging system. It's not super important. We'll maybe look at it, but it's a bit annoying. Public static void main. It's for when you try to import things and have bigger structured programs. So if we went over here and we created a basic vehicle, this basic vehicle, right? The reason why we use getters and setters is because over here, let me just save this. Over here, we've set our attributes to private. Okay, So if we try to do something like registration is equal to updated, this will give us an error, right? So we can actually try it out. Let's go over here. We try to compile this, so we go right, it compiles. Let me just have a look here. Sorry, let's save that. It won't compile because registration has private access in basic vehicle. So that's why we would have the getter method, right? So get registration. So, or that's why we would have the set method. So set registration, and we want to give it a new registration. So over there, if we compile, now it compiles and we can run it, but it won't output anything. Okay, so this is part of the idea of encapsulation. The reason why we create things to be private is because we don't want anyone to just change the value if they can access it. So if we don't want people to be able to change the latitude, longitude, and altitude, then we just don't create set methods for those attributes. Does that make sense? So if you think of a GPS, like a GPS program.
Actually, I think it's only great now, sir.
Yeah, so if you think of a GPS program, you might want to be able to update the registration, like the name of the person, the owner, right? So that for that, you would have a get and a set method. However, internally, the GPS is constantly updating its own position. So you don't want someone to be able to change any of the values of the altitude, the longitude, or the the positional values. So what we would do then is we set those variables private, and we don't have any set methods for them. You can only read the position values. That's the concept of encapsulation. And so that's why we do getters and setters. In these assignments, we're just testing if you know how to write the get and set methods. So we ask you to do it for everything, but in reality, you wouldn't have set methods for everything. And you would also maybe not have get methods for everything, depending on what your attributes are. Does that make sense? Okay, let me just make sure I'm not missing any chat messages. I think we're okay there. We're okay here. All right, so let's continue. We'll have get and set methods for everything. So we'll just put, I'm lazy, so we'll put etc. But to give you an example of, say, the doubles, we would have a public double get altitude, right, with no parameters. And because it's a double, like a primitive data type, it's fine to just say return, because primitive data types are just, they're passed by value and not reference. So what I mean by pass by value and reference, the value is obviously like something like a number, or in the case of a string, it's the actual characters. The reference is the place in memory. So it'll be a string at, right, some position in memory. So when we pass by value, we copy the value and make a different copy of the data. When we pass by reference, we actually just give it the address in memory. So you can imagine for a really big object, which is say megabytes in size, we maybe don't want to just copy it entirely and pass it through, because now we're duplicating, megabytes and megabytes of data. Instead, we might just pass it a reference to the point in memory. Then we can say things like, if you have this reference, you may only read from the memory. You may not actually access any of the memory. And now that I'm explaining this, actually, I'll make it a part of the lectures so we can actually discuss some of the behavior. So languages like Rust have explicit rules about how you can pass by reference and how you can pass by value, to protect us from making these mistakes. And in the case where there's unintended data access happening, that's something called a data leak or a memory leak. And that's how a lot of security exploits are done, like hacking exploits, where people exploit these bugs in the code to get access to memory they're not supposed to, and from there they can pull data such as encryption keys or passwords or whatever. All right, but for now we're not too worried about that. For now we need to write a public method called printinfo that prints out the state of the object, see below. And so we need to print out the following. So public, and we're not returning anything, void print info. We're also not taking any parameters. And then here we say system.out.println, right? And we'll say registration plus this dot registration. Maybe we'll do that. You can also get fancy and do like string formatting. I think it is string.format. Yeah, you can say string.format. You can put like a template string in there and then have the arguments for the formatting. So I think you can say altitude like this, and then say this dot altitude. I think that's how it works. I'll have to double check. We'll actually just quickly compile. Format, we're missing a semicolon. Java got me again. Yeah, and it compiled, and if we run, we need to now say print info. So instead of this, let's say print info. Just delete one of those. And quickly compile test assignment. And then run test assignment. So we got registration unknown. Oh, that's because we need to print it out. So we'll say system.out.println or string.format, and just quickly recompile and run. So you can see here that we actually messed it up. I'm not sure what the Java string format. Let's just go Java string. Have a look for the format method. So I highly recommend you get familiar with the documentation. You can go over here and look at all the constructors and then the methods. Format using returns a formatted string and arguments, format a format string. So let's just have a look here. I think we use a percentage sign. Yeah, so we use a percentage sign and a conversion. The conversion here is decimal integer, octal integer, integer, floating point or decimal number. So we go percentage F, I think, like this. So now if we recompile, yeah, we can see that our altitude has been formatted. The idea behind format strings is that you can say a width or how much you round to, so how many significant digits. Let me just double check. So I think it's I think it's 0.2, something like this. And if we compile, yeah, so we can actually format our decimal numbers using a string.format, something like that. But the main point of this is that we're just printing out everything inside the object. So it's a system.out.print line, and then just have current position, this, and so on and so forth, right? So we'll do all the attributes, this dot latitude, this dot longitude. I don't want to get bogged down too much, so that we can get to the rest of the assignment. So over here, we now need to write a public method called distance_to. This is something people struggled with. So let me talk you through this over here. So now we need to write a public method called distance_to that takes a basic vehicle parameter and returns the result as a double. So we have a double, and it is called distance_to, and we have a basic vehicle as an argument. So we'll give it the name other. Then we have a double over here, double answer equal to -1. The reason why I do this, so the reason why I would say this, return answer. The reason why I would do this is that if we get -1, there's no such thing as a negative distance, at least in the terms of the reality that we're living in. So we would, I'm not sure why it keeps doing that. The reason why we would do this is because this will indicate that our calculation or something didn't go wrong, or we haven't implemented the method yet. So the formula suggested is the distance is equal to the square root of the difference squared of all the different things. So in terms of our basic vehicle, we might have something like the delta in delta. I'm going to break this up into these terms. So we're going to have this be a single term just for readability. So delta altitude is equal to, and then it's just we can use java.lang math.square root and math.pow. So we can go up here and say import java.lang math, right, dot, and we can say whatever. But from here, we'll just import java.lang.math. Down in our thing, we will then say math.power. So the power of A by B. So this is the difference, and we want to say this is to the power of 2, so squared, right? We'll look at a couple of ways. Maybe we want to say this dot altitude minus the other dot altitude. Okay. Can anyone tell me why we're able to access altitude directly? Does anyone want to take a guess, maybe?
understand this because this refers to the thing in its own class, but I never knew about other.
Okay, so other is just the name of the parameter. We can make this something like that. It's just the name of the parameter. The reason why
I see. I thought like other is like the opposite of this.
yes, no, it's not. It's just the name of the parameter. The reason why we can access it directly is because we're in the basic vehicle class. We are in the basic vehicle class, and so we can access any of the private variables. So if our parameter is of type basic vehicle, we can actually access it directly. Okay. So for this, we can actually just copy paste these. So we can do this. We'll just change the things over here. So this will be latitude, latitude, this will be latitude, and this will be latitude. And then the next one will be longitude instead. So longitude, this dot longitude, and other dot longitude. Okay, so we have each of these three terms now. So we need to square root all of them. So the answer is equal to the math dot square root sqrt, and it is going to be the delta alt plus the delta lat plus the delta long. Okay, so with that, we need to add a semicolon as usual. With
So
that,
actually use math power. I just times it twice with each other because that's what square root is also. But
yeah,
that's a different method. I did.
yeah, you can. So you can actually just say, you know, double. I'm just writing a bit more explicitly, but you can say diff alt. So the difference in the alt is equal to this dot altitude minus other dot altitude, right? Something like that. And then you can just say that the term or whatever is equal to diff alt times diff alt. Okay, so that's fine. You can do that as well. Yeah. So with that in mind, we've completed the distance to method. I'm going to move on because we have 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure I cover task 2 as well. But the solution is also up on the resources for the course resources. So then it says create a new class called delivery vehicle that is a subclass of basic vehicle. So over here, I'm going to go to my assignment solution. I'm going to say new file, delivery vehicle, Java. Okay, and sorry, just put this away, go like this. So delivery vehicle is a subclass of basic vehicle. That means we are extending. So extends basic vehicle. Cool, like that. Okay, so we've extended the basic vehicle. We need to have the following: a private attribute, cargo list of type string. So private, and it's a string array. So string like this, cargo list like that. Then a private attribute of type int called num items. Okay. We want to create a constructor, so we can first just create a default constructor, public delivery vehicle. When we create a public delivery vehicle, we have to call super because we need to call the default constructor of the parent. And then we can say that we just set a default number of items in the cargo list. So this dot num items is 0. is 0, but the max capacity is, maybe we have a default, so we can have a public public final int default capacity, and that's equal to 5. And we can say that this dot cargo list is equal to a new string array, like that, of the default capacity. Okay, so that's a default constructor we quickly threw out there. It's not asked for, but it's just good practice. Then it says create a constructor that takes 2 parameters, a string for registration and an int for max capacity. So public delivery vehicle takes 2, a string for registration, and an int for max capacity. Okay, an int for max capacity. So we will say super with the registration, and then it asks for like a altitude, blah 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 blah. We will go 0 for altitude, longitude, and latitude. So we say 0, and this will be 0, and this will be 0. Remember that super refers to the basic vehicle class. So we're calling the constructor, passing along the registration we got. We're not setting the registration in here, and we're setting the rest to 0. And then we say this dot num items is equal to 0. This dot cargo list is equal to a new string array of size max capacity. Okay, so what this does is that now this dot cargo list dot length is equal to the max capacity. Okay, so we don't have to store the max capacity of this item because the cargo list dot length is the max capacity. So you can even say public int get max capacity, and we could just say return this dot cargo list dot length. Okay. All right. So with that, create a Boolean method called isFull that returns if the cargo list is full. So public, it's a Boolean method, Boolean is full, right, like this. And when will the cargo list be full? We return the cargo list will be full, return if this dot num items is equal to or greater than, because that's a possibility, we might mess up, greater than or equal to this dot cargo list dot length. Okay, because that's the max capacity. Or to make it a bit better to read, we can say get max capacity, something like that. So if the number of items is greater than or equal to the max capacity, then isFull will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay. The same thing with the public Boolean is empty. This will only return true if, so return if this dot num items is equal to 0. Okay, then it will return is empty. So really straightforward, but now we're building quite a flexible interface to the class, or class interface with a small I, not a big I. All right, then create a method called load cargo that takes a string parameter description and adds the cargo description to the cargo list if not already full. So we have public load cargo, and we return called load cargo and adds the string. So this doesn't return anything. We'll say void string description like this. Okay, so if, we can start it off with an if statement. If is full, right? Or not is full. If it isn't full, we want to add it. So if is full, if is full, don't do anything. We can just return, right? Something like that. You can do something like this to prevent it from doing anything. But now, if it's not full, so that's what the exclamation point says. So if not is full, then the description will go into the position where num items is. So to give you an idea, if num items is 0, then that means there is nothing in the array, and the first open position is index 0. Okay. If is index 0, because there's nothing in the array. Okay, 1, 2, 3, however many positions we have. If num items is 1, that means that we suddenly have something here in the 0th position, and the next open spot is index 1, right? So that's how the partially filled array works. What we do then is say this dot cargo list, this dot num items is equal to the description, and then we say this dot num items plus plus. We increment it by 1. And that's load cargo. Okay. So load cargo checks if it is not full, then we add it and we increment num items. So everyone with me? Right, finally, we have a public. I see we have 10 minutes left, so I'll try to make this brief. Print public void print info. Okay, so this one asks us to override, which means replace the method found in the parent class, in the super class, which is over here with print info. So down over in delivery vehicle, we can add the tag, the annotation, override, right? Override print info. And then here we will say system.out.println. I think we just say this dot registration, get registration. Oh, we have to say get registration because it's a private in the parent, in the superclass. And then we need to say if there's no cargo yet, if the list is empty. So then if is empty, we say system.out.println, println, no cargo yet, no cargo yet, else, so else. So if it is not empty, we say for string item in this dot cargo list, and then we say system.out.println item. And I think if we have a look at the output, oh, we also print the max capacity, that's fine. And then print the things. Okay, so we print out that, and then we say system.out.print line, and then we say string.format like this. Say here max capacity, I'm butchering that again, D, and this is get max capacity. Max capacity. We remove the cargo list over here. So I think with that, we finish this thing. So actually, I'll just do this to make it a bit more readable. That. Okay. So that is assignment 2. Any questions? You can see how we are handling a partially filled array. You can see how we are having to use the public getter methods in our subclass. And you can see how we override a method in the superclass. Any questions? Any comments? We can also talk about the assignment 3 if you would like, but otherwise you're welcome to enjoy the rest of your day. Tomorrow will be a consultation session. Assignment 4, the final assignment, will be released on Friday as well. Yes, go ahead.
I'm in the charging station of my assignment, but I just want to know what is costing, because
Okay.
my IDE suggested I need to cost in order to use one of the. I don't know what costing is.
Okay.
I just
So
want to know how.
yeah.
Is that, could I implement costing in my?
What is the exact context? Because I can tell you about casting, but I'm not sure if it applies to your query. So with casting, yeah, you have one type, right? So this, if it's in terms of polymorphism,
So
yeah.
I extended the vehicle and it implements a dockable as well.
Okay.
So, and then I tried to use the eraser object. So I tried to use to implement some of the methods in the vehicle class within my charging station through the array, and it says I need to cost. So I
Okay.
cost and it did work, but I just want to know what is the useful costing.
Yeah. So here in assignment 2, we have a basic vehicle, and we have a delivery vehicle that extends the basic vehicle. So in plain English, we can say that a delivery vehicle is a type of basic vehicle, and that's polymorphism, right? So a delivery vehicle is a subtype of a basic vehicle. So what we can do is over here we can call this instead a delivery vehicle, and then say print info. So let's actually try to compile this. I think if we go over here, have I saved everything? Just make sure. Okay, I'll close this for now. Save this and save this. So if I compile, error expected. Oh, okay. Sorry, 1 second. It's like that. Okay, and then okay, so if I compile this file, it says it's fine. You can use whatever, you can store a delivery vehicle as a basic vehicle, right? But if I then try to say load cargo, let's see what happens if I try to compile it. Okay, so what's happening with polymorphism is that Java, because you've stored it as a basic vehicle, then Java can only access the methods and attributes that are available in basic vehicle, even though it's a delivery vehicle and we know it should have this method. Does that make sense? So what you might want to do is cast it. So casting is telling Java, please convert this type to a different type.
Yes, sir.
So you might want to cast it to a delivery vehicle or drone vehicle. So if you store it as something, so delivery vehicle, okay. I think we can cast it like this. Let me just double check. Okay. And then we can go delivery vehicle dot load cargo something. Okay. So now if we try to compile, it will work. So even though BV was stored as a basic vehicle, when we needed to use it as a delivery vehicle type, we can cast it using these brackets. So we're telling Java, look, actually I want you to take BV and treat it as a delivery vehicle. Does that make sense? This is called explicit casting. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So
So we can use casting assignment too.
yes, of course. Yeah. Part of polymorphism is knowing what the types are that you are expected to use. This is also why. Yes, go ahead.
I was saying thank you, sir, and enjoy the rest of the day, sir.
Thank you, you too. Oh, I see it's 5. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Good luck with the rest of the assignment. I'll try to be a bit more responsive on emails in case you have some last minute queries. But otherwise, good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow for the consultation session.
Thank you, sir.